welcome back to the channel. Now, first-person shooters certainly vary in their controllability, where you'll find a general set of controls across most first-person shooters: jump, sprint, forward, backwards, left, right. Some games take this even further, at minimum adding a leaning function, which is usually done with Q and E, and hell, even Call of Duty Modern Warfare has a mounting function that acts as a lean around corner. Some milsim games take this even further, Escape From Tarkov included, so today we're going to go over Escape From Tarkov's extensive controllability. I'm going to show you how I have some of this stuff mapped out on my mouse and keyboard, and the goal of the video is to kind of help any level of player become more efficient in their play and have their controls set so that they're not left high and dry or out in the open, or fat fingering or clumsily working through some odd control. The first category is movement. Walking forward and backward and side to side. WASD. Do not change this or your parents will abandon you. Trust me. I know. Also, I know some of you fucking weirdos out there use ESDF for your movement. Ah! We're not going to talk about that. Sprinting. The default here is left shift. I use left shift. Sprinting in Escape From Tarkov can be set to toggle or hold, but considering how much sprinting you're going to be doing after you start using the SJ6 as a suppository, you're going to want it on toggle. Seriously, if you're holding sprint that much, you probably have a really strong pinky finger, and nobody really needs that. I mean, think of how many calories you burn having an extra strong pinky muscle. That's just a waste. Be more efficient than that. Jump. The default is space. I use backspace. Just kidding. For toggle crouch, the default is C. I use C. I know a lot of older games use control for crouch, but you're gonna do a lot of rearranging on your keyboard if you set it to control, so I recommend not doing it, but hey, I can't stop you from making poor decisions. Also, you current Tarkov players that are already typing away madly in the comments like, "Hey, not talking about variable crouch, bro!" I'll get there, just relax. For going prone, the default is X. I use X. It's really just going prone, and this is EFT, so I know you're expecting, press X to go prone and page up, Control Shift Q to fucking throw a shuriken on the way down, but I promise you that's not the case. Now to toggle slow walk and normal walk, default is caps lock. I use caps lock. Again, before you blow a vein, there is variability to this that I'm going to talk about. It's okay. Okay. You're fine. Alright, so now let's kick things up a notch. That's right, walking in Tarkov is fucking advanced. Left foot, right foot, shit no. By default, scrolling with your mouse will incrementally adjust your walking speed. You want to walk at the aggressive pace of an old lady with some 2.5 pound weights or cans of beans? Just make sure that little slider is all the way to the right. Want to walk at a snail's pace? Scroll that little guy all the way down to the left. You want to walk at a pace that a snail would call slow? Just make sure you're crouched and that little slider is all the way to the left. With this change in walking speed, your noise emissions will change too. The slower you're walking, the quieter you are. The louder you're walking, the louder you are. Now here's a dating pro tip for you. Walking slowly will allow you to get up to that PMC you're sneaking up on and kiss him right on the ear before you put some lead in it. While on the other hand, sprinting will let everyone ahead of you know that they should hang out in a bush or behind a door and let you come to them. You can also walk slow involuntarily. Just get shot in the legs and save yourself the effort of having to change speeds manually. Now once you've set your walk speed with the scroll wheel, pressing caps lock will toggle your walk speed between the very minimum and the spot you were just set to. So if you want to continue back on a normal walking speed, just make sure to scroll your way right out of there. Crouching is fucking advanced. This is space age shit we're talking here. We put a man on the moon. Allegedly. So go ahead, hold your crouch button and scroll away. This will help get your PMC to the optimal crouchiness. Now this function can really help you ruin someone's day over there with precision and satisfaction. Now let's talk QE, and I'm not talking about quantitative easing, I'm talking about leaning. And not leaning in the financial sense. This has nothing to do with the Federal Reserve banking system. This is just leaning. Stop reading into it. Lean can be set to hold or toggle, and the default keys would be Q and E. I use Q and E, and I use hold. Now, precision leaning is left alt plus Q and E, and if you need to reset that, you just press Q or E to return to the center position. Now, if you're in a scenario where full leaning will leave the other half of you exposed on the other side of the thin-ass cover you're dumb enough to think is working, precision leaning might be for you. Now, the precision leaning function can actually come in handy in quite a few scenarios, and I would say especially at medium to long-range engagements, especially involving narrow cover. The reason being, the other PMC is probably bobbing back and forth in a really jerky motion using the leaning function and the moving function as an on-off switch, where all you have to do is expose yourself just a little bit and take your shot. All the while, he's expecting the same thing that he's doing from you. He's expecting, big flashes of torso and legs and arms and gun and head to come out, and really all you're doing is exposing yourself enough to take a shot at his dumb ass that's moving around too much. Not only can you lean while standing, you can lean while prone too.
Advanced leaning.
Now that is hardcore prone. Everything that applies to leaning while you're standing applies when you are prone too. This includes precision leaning. Now for sidestepping, which is a quick sidestep, I guess you would say, is left alt plus Q and E, and I use left alt plus Q and E. I need to mention sidestepping now because it is absolutely fucking useless when standing, but it's actually really pretty handy when prone. Now, how do you sidestep when you're prone, you ask? Well, you don't. Using these controls when prone will actually allow you to roll on your side and gain a tactical advantage, like a guy that's trying to lean on his side to gain a tactical advantage. I couldn't think of a joke here. Set this to continuous hold or toggle. I prefer to have it on toggle so that I have some free fingers. Now let's move on to some other movement mechanics in EFT. Overhead blind fire is left alt plus W. I use left alt plus W. I personally think overhead blind fire is underappreciated. If you just need someone to fuck off for a second, overhead blind fire and right hand blind fire for that matter might be right for you. Just spray down and see if they run away. Also, if someone is right on the other side of something from you, maybe something that constitutes cover while crouched but not when standing, just crouch your ass down and let the gun do the talking. Right side blind fire. The default is left alt plus S. Yes, you heard that correctly. I use left alt plus D. Now, there's a reason I have this control set to a personal preference. Pressing left alt plus the backwards button to make your gun go around a corner on the right hand side makes about as much sense as Michael J. Fox trying to eat an ice cream cone. Too soon? Now I have it set to left alt plus D because I want the movement to somehow correlate to which way I'm moving my gun. Sorry if I'm being a little needy. Use right hand blind fire with your leaning function to get quick peeks at whatever the hell you're shooting at down there. And everybody that comes running down that hallway will... well, they'll probably just report you as a hacker because they didn't really see you all that well and you shot in the face. Left hand side blind fire, you ask? There's no such thing. You see, Tarkov is like Sparta. They just took all the left-handeds and threw them in the trash. Where they belong.
Like all
people from Tarkov.
he was inspected. If he'd been small or puny, or sickly, or
Left-handed.
or misshapen, he would have been discarded.
Now, before we get into what else you can do with your gun in raid, let's talk throwables. To throw a grenade, the default is G. I use a custom mouse button. So you've got your guys that have grenade set to double tap G so that they don't fat finger a nade out while they're opening a door, checking a bag, or pressing F to pay their respects, but that still doesn't work for me. You see, I get all twitchy and I have gigantic hands and heavy fingers, and there's really not a lot preventing me from chucking a nade at my feet in the tiny little room I'm locked in while squad waits outside. You ever see a 5-man scurrying around a dorm room with the door shut after that rock rolls across the floor? Not only does putting grenades on my mouse help me prevent accidents, it also helps me put them exactly where I want them with ease. Now, leaning to the right while throwing grenades can actually be kind of bulky and awkward on default controls. So you either have to thumb the G key or reposition your entire hand, and you can become overoccupied. You don't want that in a situation like that. Setting grenades to the mouse key allows me to throw grenades using the same controls I would be using to engage someone in a firefight. Grenades can also be set to the hotbar so that you can hold them in your hand and whisper to them tenderly before sending them off. Now, speaking of the hotbar, let's get to the weapon switching keys. By default, 1 is set to pull out your sidearm, 2 is set to pull out your primary weapon, and 3 is set to pull out the weapon on your back. Need to shave? Pressing V will pull out your melee weapon. Pressing V twice will pull out your melee weapon quickly, recklessly swing it at something, and then put it right back where it was. Since most games actually use the number 1 for a primary weapon, I have mine set to that. Number 2 pulls out my secondary, and I have my pistol on a custom key within Pinky's reach. The color of the key is pink for pistol. Now, while we're on the subject of hotkeys, we'll go over setting certain items to them. Meds, food, weapon, grenades, consumables, pretty much anything you can use can be set to a hotkey. You can do this by dragging items from your inventory down to the corresponding number on the hotbar, or by hovering over the item with your mouse and pressing the corresponding key at the top of your keyboard. And we'll get to the rest of the inventory and menu functions later. Now, as we dig into in-raid weapon functions, it's probably important to start with reloading. The default is R, and I use R. Now, you can hold R and scroll to select a certain magazine that's in your rig or your pockets. So if you have magazines with different ammo types in them, or if you have a higher or lower capacity magazine that you want to choose to put in there, you can scroll and select it. EFT features a quick reload function, which is a double tap of your reload key. This drops the magazine from your weapon on the floor and quickly inserts a new one. How quickly? I mean, I really can't tell with most guns, so I don't use it. Another reason I don't use the quick reload function is because it creates a delay in your normal reload. Now let me explain. You see, the game is essentially waiting on you to double click for that reload. So basically, you press R to reload, and the game waits for your input for the double tap, and then starts the reload animation. So here's what you should do. Bind your quick reload to a key on your grandma's keyboard in the next town over, or just some random key on your own keyboard, and reap the benefits of a faster standard reload. When we're talking in-raid weapon functions, there are a lot to get to, and you'd be forgiven for not knowing that all of them exist. Your aim down, sight, and fire are your standard mouse 1 and mouse 2. As for some of the more technical ones, you're probably going to want to change several of them for reasons we'll go over. Let's start with 2 items closely related to reload, that's magazine check and chamber check. Your chamber check is by default set to left shift plus T. I use left shift plus T. Fuck! Left shift plus T. Chamber check isn't super duper important, so I haven't rebound this, because I generally don't do chamber checks while I'm being shot at. But the same cannot be said about doing a magazine check. The default magazine check is left alt plus T, and I use a custom mouse button. Now, as I mentioned before, a lot of these are going to be custom binds. That's because pressing the modifiers left alt or shift or control while pressing any sort of movement button and trying to get your chamber check or your mag check done is going to put your body in a position that resembles a human pretzel, and probably a human pretzel that's not in cover anymore and is susceptible to gunfire. Magazine check should be a single button or an easy combo that doesn't prevent you from moving and allows you to do a mag check while repositioning or running or pushing forward. Switching scopes by default is left control plus right mouse button. I use a custom mouse button. Same thing goes here. Imagine being ambushed at the front without cover, and you want to aim down sight and engage these PMCs, but you realize your 749,000 power scope is much too much, so you need to switch to your canted sight. And now imagine you've got to press left control and shift and W and right mouse button all at the same time. You're probably going to have to tell the enemy PMCs to hold on a second while you regain some cover and switch scopes. Now, it's not to say you can't get used to these default controls and proficient at them. However, there are situations where you are going to have to stop moving to do some of these actions, and to me that's just not worth it. To change your scope magnification or your optic mode is left control plus right mouse button, and I use a custom mouse button. Again, set this to something that won't stop you dead in your tracks in a pinch. Changing your reticle type on your optic can actually be necessary in situations where you can't see your tiny little red dot anymore against a white background or a red background. Or maybe you want something on your optic that mimics the spread of a shotgun a little more. Changing magnifications is almost as necessary as oxygen in a sniper situation, so don't have it set to something that mimics a combo in a street fighting game. Scope elevation, up or down, or your zeroing is set to page up and page down by default. I use a custom mouse button, and that's my scroll wheel left and right. Do whatever you want to do here. I have it set to my mouse because I like to be able to make a quick switch, and I have a lot of mouse real estate. If you have less real estate on your mouse, fewer buttons essentially, maybe you want to keep it up page down and page up. Now, page up and page down can actually be a little more immersive too, considering you're taking your hand off of something and making an adjustment. So, pick your poison. While we're on topic, while you're scoped in, pressing left shift will steady your aim. This is the same as any other game, and I keep it as the default. To toggle your tactical device on or off, the default is T. I use T. Now this one comes down to preference, but I think T is a sexy letter and I don't mind pressing it to turn something on. To toggle your tactical device mode, the default is left control plus T. I use left control plus T. This control changes your tactical or combo device or flashlight's modes between laser, flashlight, IR, green laser, red laser, whatever happens to be on that device. Now, this is something that I generally tend to change before or after firefights and maybe not in the middle of them, so I don't mind having it set to the default control. However, if you're someone that likes to switch quickly between laser and flashlight in really tight situations, close quarters combat, maybe you can find another setting for this control. To change your fire mode, the default is B. I use B. Now to check your fire mode is left alt plus B. I actually use a custom mouse bind for this. Now you might be asking, why? Why not just use the default button to change fire mode to check which fire mode you're on? All you have to do is press it twice and you know where you're at, and if it's not the right one, just switch it back. Well, you probably want to ask the 50 or so PMCs that would have otherwise had the drop on me. See, whether you're healing or ratting around or listening to some sick beats on your headphones, that little click from change fire mode can give you all the information you need about the guy that's walking through the building, clicking that button 400,000 times like he's playing Counter-Strike, switching between his knife and his pistol and his primary, thinking he's super cool. Oh, bro, dude, I'm just like switching fire modes and weapons, all those sex chat. Oh, dude, I'm like Shroud. Switching fire modes can be very valuable in a lot of situations. However, when you're trying to maintain the element of surprise, changing your fire mode to check it can really lead to your demise. To inspect your weapon, the default is L. I use L. It's L. For look. Just keep it that way. It's simple. And also, don't get shot or die while doing this. It's almost as embarrassing as getting killed while walking around because you feel the need to click your change fire mode incessantly. To fold your stock, the default is left alt plus L. I use left alt plus L. Now, folding your stock is something that's a little more useful in the inventory for space saving. However, if you do have a long weapon with a foldable stock and you're in a close quarters situation, trying to, aim around corners or doorways, having a shorter weapon can actually make it a little easier to get your weapon aimed quicker. Furthermore, if you have some PMC coming up on you trying to make out with you and you have the shorter weapon, you're going to be the one with the barrel pointed in the right direction as you guys get closer. And closer. And closer. And closer. To toggle your night vision or your face mask, the default is N. I use N. To pay your respects and open doors, the default is F. I use F.
You sure the third one's contained?
Yes. Unless they figured out how to open doors.
Чики-брики, пальчик выкинь.
Don't forget that you can scroll while in the door context menu to select unlock or open or breach or select a keycard. Free look by default is set to hold down middle mouse button and look around. I use hold down middle mouse button to look around. To get into your inventory or exit your inventory, press tab, and then pressing escape will also get you out of your inventory screen. To To check the time and exit, the default is O. I use O. A single press of O will show you the time only. A double press of O will show you the time and your available exits. To mumble, the default is F1. If you've got something to say it. You go, girl.
Nice. What's up over there? Oh, never mind. What? Repeat! Can't hear it! Can't hear it. Say again. Repeat. What? Repeat. Can't hear it.
To open your communications menu by default, press Y twice. That's what I use. In this menu, you're going to be able to set certain gestures and voice lines to hotkeys, and this gives you a lot of stuff to work with. You can set a key to flip somebody the bird before you throw Zarya in their direction, forever burning your insult into their retinas. Do you ever find yourself walking along and you find something incredibly beautiful and you want to save that moment forever? To take a screenshot, press Alt plus print screen. Now let's jump into the inventory and check out a few final things. You can right-click on items for a handy-dandy context menu. To rotate items in the inventory, hold them and press R. Now what you need to do is do this to all the one square items you're carrying on your person. You see, when the other PMC is looting your dead body, they're just gonna have to change all that shit back. They can't help it. Check this out, this guy I looted. It's that kind of guy that just feels like he's gotta rotate every item, like I somehow feel some need to rotate everything back to make it all right again. No, I don't need to. It's fine. I mean, what kind of monster does this, really, though? I mean, why? Why do you even need to? Like, anyway, it doesn't bother me. I don't need to put it back. Everything's fine. I'm just gonna start putting everything away. Bitch. Fucking monster. Who the fuck does this? I mean, even your grenades? Come on. You're an asshole. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. Just like to see it. For organization purposes, sprats. Like, they gotta be, it doesn't bother me. To delete an item in raid or in your inventory, the default is actually the delete key. Now this is a pain in the ass because you either have to move your left hand to a different time zone or take your hand off your mouse. I have this set to a pinky accessible key. To transfer wearable equipment and or gear or weapons to your PMC, the default is left alt plus click, and that's what I use. Left alt plus click will transfer any gear in your inventory or on another player to a vacant spot on your PMC, and there cannot be conflicts. No, you cannot wear that bomb suit with that hang glider. As long as there's an open spot, the item will transfer. To transfer items to a chest rig, pockets, or backpack, the default is left control plus click, and that's what I use. This is going to take any item that you're clicking on and transfer it to an inventory slot rather than a equipment slot. Cool thing with this function is that some things will actually go where they belong. Magazines are going to go into your chest rig or your pockets. Meds are going to go into your backpack at this point, but that'll hopefully change in the future. Now, there is a known bug where using this function to transfer alcohol to your face doesn't actually work, and BSG are working on it. Also, when selling to traders, holding left control and clicking on the item will transfer the item from your inventory to the trade table so you can make a deal. Now this comes in handy when trying to sell painkillers and vodka to the therapist. You know, been in Tarkov a long time. I haven't seen a woman in forever. And she's starting to look real nice in those scrubs and clogs. That brown hair. That resting bitch face. She likes vodka. Spending too much time in your hideout and maybe starting to notice holographic images floating above your desk and wondering why you keep drinking moonshine? Just press the I button. It'll turn those right off. You don't have to stop drinking moonshine. Need access to the console so that you can type in the command to bring up the FPS counter? Press the tilde key. But don't use the FPS counter, it reduces your FPS. I'm fucking serious. To fold a weapon in your inventory, that's in raid or in the character screen, press the middle mouse button while you're over the item. It has to be foldable. And there's a bug right now. If you have a sight on or a rubber butt pad, it's not going to fold, but hopefully that's gone soon. Same goes for examining items. Hover over the item, press the middle mouse button. You can also right click and get the context menu to examine the item, but that's slow and inefficient. Don't do it. Another inventory pro tip here. While you're emptying a magazine of ammo that you don't want on your person anymore, hover your mouse over that new generated stack of ammo and press the delete key while the magazine is emptying. This will make your PMC dutifully empty that ammunition onto the ground, which is where you'll be once that 5-man walks around the corner. On a quick side note, make sure to check out my other video tutorials on continuity in video production. The 0.12.8 patch has added a couple of controls, so let's go over those. The first addition is the compass. Now that's by default set to the U key. I use a custom mouse bind. The reason I have it set to that is I don't want to be lifting hands or anything like that, or searching across the keyboard for that U key in a tight situation where I need to call out where other players are quickly. So I've been waiting to release this video until 0.12.8 came out because there's a couple of new controls added, and in between the making of the bulk of the video and this morning, it's like 6 a.m. and 0.12.8 is just coming out, I accidentally reset my main account while trying to reset my secondary account. So 0.12.8 is a wipe for me, and I'm not going to have footage of the compass just yet. So sorry. The next new addition is drop your backpack, and that's a double tap of the Z key by default, and that's what I use. Now the next two are new reloading mechanics, and I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing with them. To unload your chamber, the default is left control plus R. I have it set to left control plus R. To detach your magazine, the default control is left alt plus R, and I actually have this unbound. I'm going to probably end up unbinding both of these after testing them out a little bit, and that's because I use blind fire and precision leaning, and I don't want those controls getting in the way of things that I use that are really practical, and frankly I can't think of much of a practical application for dropping your magazine or clearing your chamber at this point in the game's development. The only other thing worth mentioning here is your mouse sensitivity, which of course is going to be a preferential thing. However, there's two ways to adjust your mouse sensitivity. One is to go into the menu and adjust it in there, and the other is to put on extremely heavy gear with reduced movement and turn speed penalties. So here's what I recommend. Go into an offline raid with the heaviest, thickest gear you got. I mean, I want you to look like Mrs. Incredible, okay? Put that gear on and see what it's like to turn quickly with your mouse sensitivity dialed the way you like it. Then take all that gear off and see what it's like to turn. And what I would try to do is just try to find a happy medium between your really, really heavy gear, or the heaviest gear you tend to use, and no gear or the lightest gear you use. This way you're not thrown off guard by, coming into raid and not being able to turn, or looting somebody's, fort armor and not being able to turn. Whatever it may be, you don't want to have that much of an adjustment in the middle of a raid. So spend some time in an offline raid trying to adjust your mouse sensitivity to what you think is appropriate. And that about does it for the Escape from Tarkov controls, and if I've missed anything, you can tell me to go fuck myself in the comments, but I don't I don't have to tell you that. You'll do it anyway. I stream every weekday on Twitch, and even on the weekends sometimes when I'm feeling extra saucy, and you'll find the links for that in the description. And here we are, at the point in the video where I teach you how to keybind, like, and share and subscribe to numerous macros on your keyboard, and I expect you to do this for every single one of my videos, and even when you're in raid, you need to hotkey subscribe. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to leave it to your best judgment and trust that you'll give me your honest feedback. Cheers, gents.